Hello, brains. Raise your hand if this year is going the way you expected it to go. Yeah. Change is stressful, and according to research, those of us with ADHD don't really cope well with that. This really surprised me to learn because I honestly thought I did. First of all, I'm great in a crisis. A lot of ADHDers are. When something goes wrong, whatever needs to be done, we're on it. Second, if something in my life doesn't go the way I planned, I'm pretty good at figuring out why that's actually fine. Or at least distracting myself with video games. Also, I have had a lot of practice with change and all of the stress that comes with it. That's basically my life. Turns out, all of these things might be because of how those of us with ADHD experience stress. According to research, stressful events are more upsetting to those with ADHD, and we tend to have a lower tolerance for stress. So we either avoid it by distracting ourselves or using something called positive reappraisal, or we aggressively confront it and deal with it quickly, which doesn't really give us a chance to process what's happening and figure out options, which is fine in some situations. Again, great in a crisis. But not everything is a crisis. Sometimes taking action quickly can actually make things worse. Some of the actions we take to alleviate our stress don't actually address the situation causing that stress. And even if they do, impulsive decisions can lead to more unexpected change and more stress, especially if we didn't understand the situation accurately to begin with, which, according to research, happens a lot. The level of stress we experience is often out of proportion with reality, and those with ADHD tend to have picked up a ton of dysfunctional beliefs about ourselves. Like, I can't do anything right, people don't like me, I'm not good enough, that make it hard for us to see a stressful situation clearly. So something happens, we get stressed out, have a ton of automatic negative thoughts based on dysfunctional beliefs we have about ourselves, which we don't enjoy, so we either avoid it or deal with it impulsively. Either of which can lead to more unexpected change and stress. It can become a vicious cycle, and I know it well. So what's a brain to do? Recognize when a stressful situation doesn't require an immediate solution, and get support thinking through the situation and possible solutions. So it's more likely that the action we take will be effective, instead of putting us in another situation that isn't going to go as we expected and inevitably stress us out. How? 1. Talk it out. We can talk things through with a friend, a therapist, a partner, anyone who isn't directly involved in the stressful situation and can be kind of a neutral party, can help us get a better perspective on what's actually going on and what needs to be done. That doesn't mean we can't talk it through with somebody who is involved in the situation. It's just less likely they'll be able to be objective and more likely they'll be defensive. So in high stress situations, it's often a good idea to talk through it with somebody else first. This is especially true if we tend to get emotionally dysregulated during difficult conversations, which is common in ADHD. Talking it out ahead of time can help us get our thoughts straight so we can communicate more effectively. Talking things through with other people can also help protect us from gaslighting, where someone intentionally tries to convince us our sense of reality is off as a way to control or manipulate us. That extra protection can be especially important for those of us who have learned to constantly doubt ourselves. We can also, 2, use CBT. Cognitive behavioral therapy can help us work through and undo some of those dysfunctional beliefs. Lots of therapists use CBT, so a good thing to look for is one who specializes in ADHD, especially because a lot of the dysfunctional beliefs we hold about ourselves are actually related to ADHD challenges. According to one study, the longer we go without our ADHD being recognized and treated, the more of those dysfunctional beliefs pile up. There are also CBT apps like Wobot that can help us recognize cognitive distortions in our thinking and reframe those thoughts to be more in line with the actual situation. So our responses can be too. We can even do some of this ourselves. I'll link to some helpful worksheets in the description below. Finally, 3, be honest about how we feel. Feelings aren't facts, but they can give us a lot of information. And according to research, accepting and expressing sad emotions rather than suppressing them can actually help us recover. We can do that by journaling or drawing or picturing our feelings, sharing with a friend, checking in with our body to see how we literally feel. Either way, it's a good idea to figure out what we're feeling before we try to figure out how to fix it. If the idea of actually feeling your feelings terrifies you, confuses you, or you have a history of trauma, it might be a good idea to enlist some extra support with this. I'm currently working with a grief and trauma therapist, and it's been really helpful for me. Turns out, figuring out what I'm actually feeling instead of instinctively reacting to what I think I'm feeling is helpful in making better decisions. We'll talk more about emotions in another episode. In the meantime, try out these strategies. Just be careful to avoid using them as another way to avoid dealing with things. Talking through a situation is great, But at some point, we probably will need to take action. Reframing using CBT is helpful, as long as we're using it to help us understand a situation better, not override how we actually feel about it. Again, the point of all of this is so we can deal with unexpected change and all the stress that comes with it more effectively, so that our future selves can get a freaking break. Thank you to our brain advocates and all our Patreon brains for helping me navigate all of the change that comes with the growth of this channel. We're doing a lot of cool things now, including a website, which is up now. It's howtoadhd.com. Check it out. We're not quite finished yet, but we're getting there. One change at a time. Bye, brains.